If you are over 60 and you feel that burning, tingling, or numbness in your feet and hands, do not accept it as normal. Do not accept it as inevitable. And do not let anyone tell you it is simply part of getting older. Because what is causing that sensation, in a significant number of adults over 60, is a deficiency so common, so measurable, and so correctable that it should be the first thing checked at every single appointment after 60. And it almost never is. Here's the number that stopped me cold. A study published in the journal Neurology found that adults with low levels of this specific vitamin were 3 times more likely to develop peripheral neuropathy than those with adequate levels. 3 times. Not a modest increase, not a marginal association. 3 times more likely to experience the burning, the numbness, the pain, the loss of sensation that makes every step uncertain and every night uncomfortable. That vitamin is B12. But here is what makes this genuinely urgent, and what most conversations about B12 completely miss. The problem is almost never that you are not taking B12. The problem is that after 60, your body has lost the ability to absorb it. Stay with me until the end, because the specific form and delivery method of B12 I'm going to show you today is the one that clinical evidence indicates works even when your absorption system has already failed. And it is the difference between supplementing and actually repairing. Before we go any further, if nobody has ever told you this before, your health deserves attention. I upload a new video every single week covering the things your doctor often doesn't have time to explain. Hit subscribe and tap that bell so you never miss what could be keeping you healthy. Now, let's talk about what is really happening inside your nervous system. A quick but important note. The information in this video is for educational purposes only. It is not intended as medical advice, and it does not replace your personal physician. Always consult your doctor before making any changes to your health routine, especially if you take metformin, proton pump inhibitors, or any medication for acid reflux. These medications directly deplete B12, and your physician needs to know you are supplementing. Never adjust your medication without physician guidance. That said, being informed is your first line of defense, and that's exactly what we're here to do. Here is something that most neuropathy conversations get completely wrong from the very beginning. The focus is almost always on managing the symptoms: pain medication, gabapentin, topical numbing agents, antidepressants used off-label for nerve pain. These are not treatments, they are volume controls. They turn down the alarm without addressing the fire. The fire, in a significant proportion of adults over 60 with peripheral neuropathy, is a deficiency that is simultaneously damaging the myelin sheath, protecting your nerve fibers, disrupting the production of your neurotransmitters, and impairing the metabolic processes your nerve cells depend on for basic survival. Think of it like the insulation on an electrical wire being slowly stripped away. While the insulation is intact, signals travel cleanly and accurately. When the insulation degrades, signals misfire, short-circuit, and produce sensations that were never supposed to reach your brain. Burning, tingling, electric shock feelings, hypersensitivity to touch, and eventually, no signal at all. That is what neuropathy is: a signal transmission failure caused by damaged myelin insulation. Here's what the research found. A comprehensive review published in the journal Nutrients analyzed the relationship between B12 deficiency and peripheral neuropathy across more than 40 studies. The conclusion was unambiguous. B12 deficiency is one of the most common, most reversible, and most consistently underdiagnosed causes of peripheral neuropathy in adults over 60. Most common, most reversible, most underdiagnosed. 3 things that should not coexist, but do. Every day, in clinics everywhere. Now here is where it gets important. B12 deficiency after 60 is almost never caused by inadequate dietary intake. You are almost certainly eating enough B12. The problem is a specific protein called intrinsic factor, produced in your stomach lining, that is essential for B12 absorption in the small intestine. After 60, intrinsic factor production declines significantly. And without intrinsic factor, the B12 you consume passes through a digestive system almost entirely unabsorbed. Think of it like trying to fill a bucket with a hole in the bottom. You can pour as much as you want, but without the right container, intrinsic factor, almost nothing stays. And here is the compounding factor. If you take metformin for blood sugar, or any proton pump inhibitor for acid reflux, omeprazole, pantoprazole, lansoprazole, these medications directly impair B12 absorption further. The NIH estimates that long-term metformin use causes clinically significant B12 depletion in up to 30% of users, most of whom are never told. I'm going to walk you through 5 specific things you need to know about B12 and neuropathy today. After each one, I will give you the exact corrective actions supported by published medical research. Let's begin. Point 1. Your standard blood test for B12 is almost certainly showing you the wrong number. Here is the alarming part. When your doctor orders a B12 blood test, it measures total serum B12, the total amount of B12 circulating in your blood. But only a fraction of that circulating B12 is biologically active. The rest is bound to proteins and unavailable to your cells and nerve tissue. Think of it like measuring the total water in a reservoir without checking how much of it is actually reaching the taps in people's homes. The reservoir looks full, the taps run dry. Here's what the research found. A study published in the journal Clinical Chemistry found that up to 35% of adults with normal total serum B12 levels had functional B12 deficiency, meaning their nerve cells were operating in a B12 depleted state, when more specific markers were tested. The more specific markers are methylmalonic acid, MMA, and homocysteine. When B12 is insufficient at the cellular level, both of these compounds rise measurably in the blood, regardless of what the serum B12 reading shows. This is why your doctor may have told you your B12 is fine and you still have burning feet, tingling hands, and worsening neuropathy symptoms. Your serum B12 was checked. Your functional B12 was not. The corrective action for point 1. Speak with your physician and specifically request methylmalonic acid and homocysteine blood tests alongside your standard B12 panel. Not instead of, alongside. These 2 markers tell you what your serum B12 cannot, whether your cells are actually receiving and using the B12 you have. If your MMA or homocysteine is elevated, even with a normal serum B12, functional deficiency is present and needs to be addressed. This single conversation with your physician may be the most important one you have had about your nerve health in years. In about 4 minutes, I'm going to tell you something about a specific form of B12 that bypasses the entire absorption problem, and why the form most doctors recommend and most supplements contain is the least effective form available for nerve repair. Point 2. The form of B12 in almost every supplement and most prescriptions is the wrong form for nerve protection. This is the one that surprises people every time, and the one that explains why so many people supplement with B12 and still see no improvement in their neuropathy. There are 4 forms of B12: cyanocobalamin, hydroxocobalamin, adenosylcobalamin, and methylcobalamin. Cyanocobalamin is the cheapest and most commonly used form. It is found in most standard supplements, most B-complex vitamins, and is the form most commonly prescribed when B12 deficiency is identified. Here is the problem. Cyanocobalamin is not biologically active. Your body must convert it into methylcobalamin or adenosylcobalamin before it can be used by your cells. After 60, this conversion process is less efficient, and the conversion requires folate and other cofactors that many older adults are also depleted in. Think of it like being given a gift card in a currency your local shops do not accept. You technically have the value, but you cannot use it until it is exchanged, and the exchange service has reduced its hours. Methylcobalamin is the biologically active form. It does not require conversion. It enters the cellular machinery directly. And, critically, methylcobalamin has a specific, documented affinity for nerve tissue. It concentrates in nerve cells. It directly supports myelin synthesis, and it crosses the blood-brain barrier more effectively than any other form. Here's what the research found. A randomized controlled trial published in the journal Muscle and Nerve found that patients with peripheral neuropathy who received high-dose methylcobalamin showed statistically significant improvements in nerve conduction velocity, symptom scores, and electrophysiological markers, while those receiving cyanocobalamin showed no significant improvement over the same period. Same vitamin, different form. Completely different outcome for the nerves. Most people think B12 is B12. Wrong. The form determines everything, and most people are taking the wrong one. The corrective action for point 2. Replace any cyanocobalamin supplement you currently take with methylcobalamin, specifically in sublingual form. Sublingual means dissolved under the tongue. This delivery method bypasses the digestive absorption problem entirely. The B12 is absorbed directly through the mucous membranes into the bloodstream, completely bypassing the intrinsic factor requirement. Write this down. Methylcobalamin. Sublingual. Under the tongue. Not swallowed. The dose associated with nerve repair in clinical studies is 1,000 to 1,500 micrograms daily. Please discuss this with your physician before beginning, particularly if you are on metformin or acid-suppressing medication. Point 3. B12 alone is not enough. The 3 cofactors that determine whether B12 can actually repair your nerves. Let me pause here because this matters. And it is the piece of the puzzle that most B12 conversations never reach. Nerve repair is not a single nutrient process. B12 is the primary driver, but it requires 3 specific cofactors to complete its work in your nervous system. Cofactor 1, folate. B12 and folate work as a pair in the methylation cycle, the biochemical process that produces the components of myelin. Without adequate folate, B12 cannot complete the cycle. Think of it like a 2-person assembly line where one worker does not show up. The line stops, regardless of how efficient the other worker is. Cofactor 2, B6. Pyridoxine supports the synthesis of neurotransmitters, specifically serotonin, dopamine, and GABA, that are reduced in neuropathic conditions. B6 deficiency itself causes peripheral neuropathy and directly worsens B12 deficiency neuropathy when both are present simultaneously. Cofactor 3, alpha-lipoic acid. Not a vitamin, but a critical partner compound. Alpha-lipoic acid is both water and fat-soluble, which is unique among antioxidants. This dual solubility means it can penetrate nerve cell membranes, which are fat-based, and also work in the fluids surrounding nerve tissue. Here's what the research found. A meta-analysis published in the European Journal of Endocrinology found that alpha-lipoic acid supplementation significantly reduced neuropathy symptoms, burning, tingling, and pain, in adults with diabetic and non-diabetic peripheral neuropathy within 3 to 5 weeks. This is why some people take B12 for months and feel partial improvement, but not the full improvement the research suggests is possible. The cofactors are missing. The assembly line is incomplete. The corrective action for point 3. Alongside your methylcobalamin sublingual, add the following: 400 micrograms of methylfolate, the active form of folate, not folic acid. 25 to 50 milligrams of B6 as pyridoxal 5-phosphate, the active form, and 600 milligrams of alpha-lipoic acid, specifically the RALA form, which is more bioavailable than the synthetic racemic mixture. This combination addresses all 3 cofactor gaps simultaneously and provides B12 with everything it needs to complete nerve repair. Please discuss this full supplementation protocol with your physician before beginning. Before I reveal the final 2 points, I want to ask you something. In the comments below, right now, write down, which neuropathy symptom bothers you most? Burning, tingling, numbness, pain, or balance problems? Write the one word, just the word. You will be amazed at how many people reply. I read every single comment, and sometimes your answer helps someone else feel less alone in what they are carrying. Now, let's continue. Point 4. Your diet contains specific foods that are actively destroying your nerve insulation every day. Here is what nobody tells you about the dietary connection to neuropathy. 3 specific dietary patterns are directly neurotoxic. They damage the myelin sheath, deplete B12 and its cofactors, and drive the inflammatory environment that accelerates nerve damage. And at least one of them is present in what you are probably eating right now. Pattern 1. Excessive alcohol consumption. Even moderate regular alcohol intake, 2 to 3 drinks per day, directly impairs B12 absorption, damages the gastric lining that produces intrinsic factor, and has direct neurotoxic effects on peripheral nerve fibers. Here is what the research found. A study published in Alcoholism, Clinical and Experimental Research found that regular alcohol consumption was independently associated with measurable nerve conduction slowing, even in adults without a clinical alcohol use disorder. Pattern 2. High refined sugar and ultra-processed food intake. Elevated blood glucose, even in adults without a diabetes diagnosis, directly damages the small blood vessels that supply nerve fibers. Without adequate blood supply, nerves starve. The resulting damage is identical in mechanism to diabetic neuropathy, just occurring at a lower glucose threshold. Pattern 3. Gluten sensitivity. In individuals with undiagnosed non-celiac gluten sensitivity, here's what the research found. A study published in the journal Brain found that gluten ataxia and gluten neuropathy, nerve damage driven by immune reaction to gluten, is present in a clinically significant proportion of adults with otherwise unexplained peripheral neuropathy, many of whom had normal, standard celiac tests. Think of it like pouring sand into a precision engine. The engine can run for a while, but the abrasive damage accumulates, and eventually the system begins to fail in ways that look like mechanical breakdown rather than contamination. The corrective action for point 4: 3 dietary modifications implemented simultaneously. Reduce or eliminate alcohol for a minimum of 8 weeks and monitor symptom change. Eliminate refined sugar and ultra-processed foods as the primary dietary intervention, focusing meals on whole proteins, vegetables, healthy fats, and complex carbohydrates. And if your neuropathy is unexplained or resistant to treatment, speak with your physician about testing for non-celiac gluten sensitivity, specifically through a combination of anti-gliadin antibody testing and a 6-week elimination trial. Point 5. And this is the reframe that this entire video has been building toward. Most people believe that peripheral neuropathy is a progressive condition, that the direction is always downward, that nerve damage accumulates and cannot be reversed. I believed that for a long time. Then I encountered a body of research that changed how I explain this condition to every person I speak with. And I want you to hear this carefully, because it changes everything about how you think about your nerves. Here is what the research found. A landmark study published in the journal Diabetes Care followed adults with established peripheral neuropathy over 52 weeks. Half received intensive nutritional and metabolic intervention, addressing B12, cofactors, blood sugar, and inflammatory diet factors. Half received standard care. At the end of the study, the intervention group showed measurable improvement in nerve fiber density, the actual number of functioning nerve fibers in the skin of the foot, compared to the control group, who continued to decline. Let that sink in for a moment. Nerve fibers grew back. Not in all patients, not completely, but measurably. Documented, confirmed by skin biopsy. The medical community has historically taught that peripheral nerve damage is largely irreversible. The emerging research says something different. The peripheral nervous system, unlike the central nervous system, has genuine regenerative capacity. Peripheral nerve fibers can regrow. The myelin sheath can be rebuilt. The process is slow, measured in months, not days, but the direction of travel can be reversed. What determines whether your nerves recover or continue to decline is whether the environment around them is one of ongoing damage or one of active support. And everything we have covered today, the right form of B12, the cofactors, the dietary modifications, the accurate testing, creates that supportive environment. Your nerves are not giving up. They are waiting for the right conditions. The corrective action for point 5, the foundational one, commit to a minimum 12-week protocol. Not 4 weeks, not 6, 12. Because peripheral nerve regeneration, confirmed by the research, operates on a timeline of 3 to 6 months for measurable symptom improvement. Any assessment before 12 weeks of consistent, complete nutritional support is premature. Track your symptoms weekly, using a simple scale of 0 to 10 for burning, tingling, numbness, and balance, so you can see the gradual improvement that daily perception misses. Share this tracking with your physician at your next appointment. Let me bring all 5 points together for you now. Point 1. Your standard B12 blood test is measuring the wrong thing. Corrective action? Request methylmalonic acid and homocysteine testing alongside your serum B12. Because these markers reveal functional deficiency that serum B12 misses, and functional deficiency is what is damaging your nerves. Point 2. The B12 form in most supplements does not work for nerve repair. Corrective action. Switch to methylcobalamin sublingual, 1,000 to 1,500 micrograms daily, dissolved under the tongue. Because sublingual delivery bypasses intrinsic factor failure and delivers biologically active B12 directly to your bloodstream. Point 3. B12 needs 3 specific cofactors to repair nerves. Corrective action. Add methylfolate, 400 micrograms, B6 as P5P, 25 to 50 milligrams, and RALA, 600 milligrams daily. Because without these cofactors, the methylation cycle cannot complete myelin synthesis, regardless of B12 levels. Point 4. 3 dietary patterns are actively destroying your nerve insulation. Corrective action. Reduce alcohol. Eliminate refined sugar and ultra-processed foods. And investigate gluten sensitivity if neuropathy is unexplained. Because the environment around your nerves determines whether repair is possible. Point 5. Peripheral nerves can regenerate. Corrective action. Commit to a 12-week complete protocol and track symptoms weekly. Because nerve regeneration is slow, and progress that is real is often invisible day to day until you look back across weeks. You do not have to do all of these at once. Pick the one that resonated with you most deeply today. Start there. Just one action. This week. That is how real transformation begins. I want to say something to you before we close. Living with neuropathy is one of the most disorienting experiences a person can face. The burning that keeps you awake, the numbness that makes you uncertain on your feet, the loss of sensations you once took completely for granted. And most of the time, you have been told to manage it, medicate it, accept it. You were not told it might be driven by a correctable deficiency. You were not told the form of supplement matters. You were not told your nerves can regenerate given the right conditions. That gap in information is not your fault, and it is not permanent. The research on B12, myelin repair, and peripheral nerve regeneration is among the most rapidly advancing areas in all of neuroscience. And what it consistently shows is that the nervous system, even after significant damage, is more resilient and more responsive than we were taught to believe. Your nerves have not given up. The science has not given up on them, and neither should you. Take care of yourself, because every nerve fiber that recovers gives back something precious: sensation, balance, confidence, and freedom of movement. And you deserve all of it. If this video gave you something valuable today, please do one thing for me. Not for the channel, for the person sitting next to you, or the person on the other end of your phone. Share this video with one person over 60 in your life who is living with burning feet or tingling hands and has been told there is nothing to be done. You might not know it, but that simple act could genuinely change their health. If you haven't subscribed yet, please do it now. I post every week with the same goal: to give you real science in plain language that you can actually use. And when you're ready, click the video on your screen right now. It covers the 5 medications most commonly prescribed to adults over 60 that are silently destroying B12 levels. And most people taking them have no idea the connection to their neuropathy exists. I'll see you there. Take good care.